Hello friends. In this video we will look at a method in MySQL to generate a random number between a given range. So in MySQL we have originally a function called rand to generate a random number between 0 and 1. So this random function will generate a random number between 0 and 1 only. Now can we utilize this function to generate a random number between any given range? So yes, let us suppose we have a desired range to generate a random number between 10 and 80. Now we want to get a random number between 10 and 80. So for that, we'll consider this 10 as lower value, that is lower limit of the given range, and this 80 as upper range. Now we'll find out a value called range that is equal to upper minus lower. In our case, it is nothing but 80 minus 10, which is equal to 70. So 70 becomes a range for us, whereas 10 is lower value and 80 is upper value. Now whenever we want to change a random number generated between 0 and 1 to a number between 10 and 80, we'll use a simple method, that is we simply multiply this random number which is generated with a number that is range, and then we add the lower value into it. So using this formula, we can convert this number between 0 to 1, and the new range will be between 10 and 80. So for example here, if I take the lower value as 0, and if we transform that using the function or using the formula, like a random number multiply by range plus lower value. So let's see here what happens. So if random number is 0, then random number multiply by range in our case is 70 plus lower value is 10. So it becomes 10. If we take the upper limit in the random number, that is 1, then for 1, the number generated will be 1 multiplied by 70 plus 10, which is equal to 80. So that means what? If the number generated is 0, it will be mapped to 10, and if a number generated is 1, it will be mapped to 80. That means the number range from 0 to 1 is now converted to 10 to 80. If we take any number between 0 and 1, then that will be correspondingly mapped to a range 10 to 80. Let us suppose we take a number 0.2, which is generated, let's say, between 0 and 1 by rand function, then that will be converted to like 0.2 multiplied by 70 plus lower value is 10, so that becomes 24 number. Similarly, let's suppose we have 0.5, and that will map to 0.5 multiplied by 70 plus 10, which gives us 45. Right, so this is the way by which we can convert a random number from 0 to 1 to any given range. You have to just replace your desired range with lower value and upper value, and accordingly find the range and utilize this formula, random multiply by range plus lower value. So let's take an example here. If I do select rand multiply by, let's suppose I want to convert a number between 10 and 80, or get a random number between 10 to 80 only. So I'll multiply this with a range which is 70, and then add a lower value which is 10, and I will display that as a result. So if I execute this query, you'll see the random number that I am getting is between 10 and 80. So if I execute it multiple times, you'll see all the numbers which will be generated will always lie between 10 and 80 only. So you can observe all the times that I am executing, the number is always written between 10 and 80 only, right? Now suppose the number that we are getting here is float, so instead we want only integer. So in that case, we can convert this same number to an integer value. So we simply will use a cast function to change this float number to the integer. So for here, this is the first parameter that will be passing, that is random multiplied by 70 plus 10, so which is the random number between 10 and 80, and then we'll cast that as signed number. So maybe sometimes we may want some negative number or positive number. Accordingly, we can put the cast as signed or unsigned. If the numbers are possible from both the positive as well as negative range, then use this as signed. If numbers are only positive, let's say for 10 to 80 range, then you can use that as unsigned also. So now here I am using just signed, let's suppose. Then we can get all the integers between 10 and 80, random integers between 10 and 80. So if I execute this query, you will see now result is integer only, right? So every time if I execute this query, you will see there is a random integer which is generated between 10 and 80, right? So this way you can convert a number, a random number between 0 to 1 which is generated by rand function to any desired range of numbers, right? So this is a method by which we can generate a random number between given range. Either that number can be a float value or an integer value. So go ahead and try this method yourself for any random number generation.